out and log back in, and we're going to go ahead and turn the recording off because I don't have my document. All right, we misfired. So we're going to go ahead and dive into what we've got going on. This is the Public Works Committee agenda for November 10th, 2011. So we actually did add Angie because we're going to be talking a little bit about storm rates here. But part of what we wanted to do is just kind of dive through some of the quick updates on projects that we've got going on. So if you recall, I believe it was the last council meeting, not on Monday, but the Monday before, or 2 Mondays before, we had the golf course irrigation project was awarded. So right now we're working through project management and construction management services. I should have a proposal early next week, depending on the cost that may end up needing to go to the council. Again, the threshold there is $30,000. And I believe what I had told council was, somewhere in between, 25 to 45, depending on the scope of services that we're asking for. My expectation is that it's not going to be, daily inspection. So should be pretty straightforward there. What you got there, Mr. Olden?
Well, I know that it's, the average is 5%.
That's not true.
Construction management on there. Obviously a bigger job is a lower price and just a smaller job. But I mean, the guy doesn't need to be on the job every day, like you're saying. So,
right.
I'm hoping you can get that dialed down best you can.
Yeah, we'll see what we can come up with and go from there. So there's the target on that one. Any other thoughts or questions? Okay.
Did you say a bid will be in next week?
A proposal from the selected design firm, yes, or selected project team.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
You're just working with one outfit, or did you put that out?
We did not advertise that. So our professional services roster is something that we do select off pretty regularly. And so this is a scenario where we looked at 5 different teams that facilitate construction management services, reviewed them and picked the most appropriate firm to move forward with, which is how all professional services are, or all A&E based professional services are selected here. I'm sorry.
Is that Green Encore that's looking at it?
Negative.
Okay.
So it is Rock Project Management that we are coordinating with right now. So our Point Brown crosswalk design services, that project, again, we send a message out to the design firm. That was SCJ that put the report together. And so we requested SCJ go ahead and put a scope together for that project. Members of the project team have separated and we haven't heard anything back yet. So that one's kind of in a holding pattern. We want to see where that ends up. Part of the reason why I want to focus on SCJ is that they had already defined their estimated fees, and I thought they were very, very reasonable. At like 14 or 15,000, and going with a bigger firm, it just seems completely unrealistic and unnecessary at this point in time. So that's where we're at on that one. We'll move as soon as we get that information back. Yes, sir.
Supposed to move forward on it, but I don't think there was ever a discussion on which crosswalk to.
The microphone's messed up again, Frank.
You're right. There wasn't any discussion on which crosswalk we were going to move forward with. Basically what we had identified is a preferred alternative. We initiated, kind of closing the loop on that with the public outreach. We did receive a lot of public feedback, some of which was design related services, but nothing really indicated that, that facility needed to be moved or relocated. And so when we submitted the bid proposal or the grant request, it was based on that location. And
Which one was that?
in between the Boardwalk Shop and Playtime Family Fun.
Okay, is that the one that's got the long strip of concrete and the median?
Yes, sir. So that's kind of the game plan at this point in time. Again, part of what we have to do is just, check the box and keep moving forward. And so that's where we're at today on that one. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions? Mr. Peterson.
Specifically, the design, you're looking for the amount of the design proposal. That's what you're looking for?
Yes. So
I want to get the
we
notes
ask-
right. Okay,
Another way to say that is that when we ask somebody to facilitate the design, how much are they going to charge us? And
Okay.
that's
how much?
so that's exactly what we're looking for.
All right,
The third item here on here for the quick updates, I should change this to rapid fire. So the vertical evacuation structure, again, we've talked about this, quite a bit over the last couple of months that, we've gone through the RFQ process. We've solicited, firms, 3 firms, I identified 3 project teams, submitted proposals. We've, narrowed those down after scoring the proposals, conducting the interviews, and we've been trying to negotiate with the preferred design team. Where we're at right now is the design fees are a little bit higher than what we think are appropriate and what we have funding for. And so we're continuing to push and renegotiate. Are we going to adjust scope? Do we have the capacity to allocate additional dollars to this? Should we be changing the structure of the framework, how we're going to approach this? So this is still a moving target. Again, when you talk about a vertical evacuation structure, this isn't something that's, you open up a design manual, it's on page 42. This is still one of those things that does require a lot of, physical site investigation, geotechnical analysis, structural analysis, modeling. And so there's a lot of front end work that does go into this, but our budget is what it is, and we're trying not to let that slip too much. So again, the consultants, refining, I think for a third time, their budget, and we'll be meeting internally to kind of figure out what our path forward is next week, hopefully. So that's kind of where we're at. My hope was that, end of October, we'd be initiating design services, at the council level. Right now, it doesn't look like it's going to be before December at the earliest. So, and that's just based on, I don't think we're at a point where we are close to them agreeing to our conditions and us agreeing to their conditions. So it's a ways off at this point in time. Any thoughts, concerns, questions on the VES?
How far down do they have to go to hit solid ground? I'm assuming they'll have to hit that and start from there up for something like that.
Well, I don't know if we're going to be able to hit solid ground.
Okay.
I want to say that's 500 or 600 feet, and yeah. So there's other systems, other ways to kind of mimic conditions to hold it in place with friction, and so it's likely going to, based on what we see when we go out and conduct our drilling, then we'll have a better understanding of how they're going to approach that. But there's a variety of different ways to establish appropriate foundation systems there. Anything else? All right, rapid fire, we're moving right along. Development activity. We are at 211 water services installed through yesterday, which is still a 13% increase over last year, and 319 side sewer inspections, which is a 7% increase over last year. So again, things are starting to slow down. We've talked about this. Anybody that's listened to me on the radio, this is something that I've been doing on a monthly basis, and this difference, this percent increase, has actually been getting less and less and less over the past few months. So things are slowing down a little bit on our end. Either that or they were really, really ramped up last year. But still, at the end of the day, what I can tell you is that, we are ahead of the record year that we set last year, by a substantial margin. So quick note on staffing. One of the things that I do think is appropriate at some point in the future is to go through, the different divisions, different worlds, different lines of business in public works, and so that you guys have a deeper understanding of, what those worlds look like, how many team members there are, what their roles are, different functions associated with those lines of business. But we haven't gone through that yet. So I just want to hit, two different pieces here. We are down 2 different FTEs, one in our sewer collections team. Their role basically is that, after you flush your toilet, waste goes, or take a shower or use your kitchen sink, waste goes from your house. And this collection team is responsible for getting it from your house and every other house in Ocean Shores all the way down to the wastewater treatment plant. And so this is something that we did talk about a while back, but so we're down effectively 20% of our staffing level at that point, with being down 1 FTE. The street and storm division, they are responsible for pretty much everything that is not water and sewer related. So street, storm, parks, litter control, beach approaches, anything and everything. And they are down 1 person right now as well. So we need to be backfilling some of these positions here in the near future. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up, because, when we are down people, that's down hours. When we're down hours, we don't have the capacity to move as fast as, some people want us to move. So it's just something that it's kind of where we're at. So something to point out there. Did you, yes, Mr. Eldon?
We're what's already in the budget.
Yes, those positions are in the budget.
Okay. We can talk about fresh water. Is this the time to talk about the fresh water hire or not?
Well, let's go ahead and head down to the discussion item. And so, really the elephant in the room, we talked about that at the last council meeting. And, one of the things that I wanted to do, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind going to the next page. Realistically, so Angie has already laid out, her, the budget adjustment. And, at this point in time, the framework is, moving forward with the proposal that Angie and I put forth on Monday night, which, if you can see in the chart here, there's 2 red boxes. The bottom red box is that 0.09 effective billing unit increase. And so that translates to a revenue generation of roughly 526,000. And so that puts us in a good position. But there was some conversation that occurred as it related to, well, let's just go ahead and scratch the position and scratch the mechanical harvesting, and get the ending fund balance up to where it needs to be. And so I did some quick back of the envelope calcs at the council meeting, and realistically, the secondary box, or the higher box, is a 0.04 cent increase per billing unit, and that generates a revenue of about $234,000. So basically, what I wanted to point out, and actually, Sarah, if you don't mind rolling down to the next page, actually, the second half of the first page, I'm sorry. So what I wanted to point out as it relates to those 2 different scenarios, again, this is the same chart that you saw the other night. The 3rd column from the left says 9,000 square foot lot, revised 2022 monthly. You can see the difference between 0.04 and 0.09 as far as the rate increase on the average customer lot. You're going to see $4.50 on an average customer lot in the event that the target is just to hit the ending fund balance, and you're going to see $5.06. If the target is to go with the FTE and go with the mechanical harvesting. So now, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind going to the third page. And actually, if you could zoom out just a hair so that we can see the entirety here. Again, basically the framework is that, with a subtle increase, it's a 50 cent, per month roughly, or 40 cent per month roughly increase that really doesn't add a lot of value other than, putting dollars at the end of the at the ending fund balance. The secondary increase of 0.09 cents per billing unit, adds the FTE, incorporates a mechanical harvesting pilot, and again, meets the objective of getting the ending fund balance to that target. I know rate modifications are not something that everybody's excited about, and one of the things that I think is super important to note. Again, I've been around the block. I've talked rate modifications for the last 15 years in public. I understand how dynamic they can be at times. I've heard people make statements about, oh, it's just a month, or just a cappuccino or a cup of coffee, and realistically, I understand not everybody has the resources to go do something like that on a daily basis. But part of what I think is really important to note, and I identified this the other at the study session, and again at the council meeting prior to the one on Monday night, is that I truly believe that the community needs a resource that they can respond to, as it relates to fresh waterways, related activities. Contacting the director every time there's an issue, I just don't think that's the best way to operate that business. So that's my 2 cents. Obviously, as the legislative body, that you guys have a lot of say in that. But when we look at the rate impact, and we look at the fact that even with this adjustment, this $1 a month adjustment to the average lot, it still leaves us as the lowest rate in the region and significantly lower than most of the other jurisdictions in the area. I think that's something that's very important for you guys to keep in mind. That our cost of service in Ocean Shores, between water, sewer, stormwater, even our ambulance rates, when you add all of those up, I'm pretty comfortable in saying that you're going to find some of the lowest rates in the region, maybe even in Western Washington. So please keep that in mind as we move forward. But I know, Mr. Elwin, you wanted to talk a little bit about the position. I think now's probably a good time to dive into that.
I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm good with paying the $10 if we can get 2 guys out there to start working in the water. That's me, but you want to put this guy on, and you've given us the reasons why, and that's fine. But I really would like him to have a crew working for him and get after this. And I think a lot of the people would be happy with that. So, that's my 2 cents. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it, but, I think take an aggressive approach. How much more would it cost to put 2 guys on? And I don't know what entry level guys make, for your public works thing, but I think that'd be kind of an entry level job if you're out there starting off working on that stuff. But
right,
that I'd really like to see that done so we can really get going on it.
Nick, can I ask a question real quick here? I'm just trying to figure out the math on this, because we have the 2020 current rate, and that is the current rate right now. It's the 293. That's accurate?
No. So again, I used the chart from last year. I didn't go recreate a new chart. So the $22.93, that's from last year.
Okay.
This year, the 2021 rate is roughly, it's $4.10 for a 9,000 square foot lot.
But then you have that as your minimum proposal, 409, and that's why I'm confused. Is that just an error then?
Nope, it's last year's data. So this is the chart that we used from last year.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So rather than minimum proposal, it's really just, that's currently what we're at.
Correct.
So that's if we do nothing. So the word proposal is what's wrong there. That's just.
Again, it was a proposal last year. So if you look up in the top right, it's actually dated 11/16/20, which was
Okay.
last year when we were talking about this. So all of the stuff in red is really the notes for where we're at today.
Right.
And again, I didn't incorporate this, into the council packet last go around, but I think where we're at, with this, what are your guys' thoughts? Is something like this helpful to embed into the council packet in the next go around when we're talking about the rate modification? Or do you think it would be more appropriate for me to actually change the table, update everything, and go from there?
I think the thing is okay, but you have to update the table. So because the minimum proposal would be confusing. That should be what our current rate is, which we voted last time. And then I'm assuming the maximum proposal is what you're actually asking for.
No, again, that was last year's, stuff. So again, we can effectively take all three of the green columns out. The 2020 rate is irrelevant today. The minimum proposal is the current rate today. And then that maximum proposal is completely irrelevant. That was the maximum rate adjustment from last year.
Then we need it cleaned up, because that would be just very confusing.
So what
Yeah,
is
even
the
I'm
maximum
confused.
proposal?
So just to clarify, Nick, so our actual increase that we're recommending is 97 cents. So a little less than $1 because it's the 409 versus the 506. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's 510 actually.
Oh, I see. If I look above, so the 506 is actually what you're requesting.
So that should
Right.
be 510 though.
410 is the 2021 rate.
Oh.
Okay, let me start over again. We've got a little bit of confusion here. So the current 2021 rate is the second column on the left, but the actual dollar amount is $4.10. I got a little screwed up with our billing unit issue that I explained on Monday night.
Okay.
How
The
could you simplify it completely down to present to people?
One more time.
Well, it seems to me that what people really want to know is what they're paying now. Okay. Okay. What, if you want a 0.04 increase, what would they pay? And if they want a 0.09 increase, what would they pay? And you're asking for a top figure of 5.06, right?
That would be the 9,000 square foot parcel. See, the tough part, Bob, is that your parcel and John's parcel and Frank's parcel may all be different sizes.
Right.
And so when you look at your utility bill, that what I don't want to do is I don't want to confuse people and get them upset because they see $4.09 or $5.06, and their actual bill comes out to be $12. Because again, there's a couple of different things that I'm going to have to make sure that I kind of bang the drum that this is a monthly rate. And when you look at your bill, it's 2 months.
Right.
And it's based on the square footage. So if you have a really big lot, your number is going to be higher than this. So I'll have to bang that drum. That's a really good point. But I can definitely clean up the chart.
What's the average lot? Is the average lot 9,000?
Yes, sir. That's why we went with that.
So if you could put that out there and then just draw an arrow up and an arrow down for, for smaller lots versus larger lots, and have people try to understand that it's going to cost you a little bit more or a little bit less. But I think all the extraneous columns over here compared to other cities, that's just, to me, that's going to be confusing for people. It's just too much information.
Okay.
Let's stay with what we're doing.
Yes, sir, Mr. Eldwin.
Why don't we just put the 2 month price on it? If that's what we're billing, why don't we just put down what the billing is going to be instead of splitting it up and then saying, well, we got to double this because you only get billed every 2 months. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess in my opinion, it's kind of a potato thing. The toughest part is what I don't want people to believe is that when we're showing it's $10.12 a month, that they or $10.12. Well, I guess again, it can be taken two different ways. They can see that and go, "Yep, you're telling us exactly what we're going to pay. That's awesome." And then there's the flip side of that coin of, holy smokes, how did it go up this high? Because we are always talking about monthly rates as opposed to bi-monthly rates. But that's a good point. What do you think of there, John?
Well, I disagree with Bob on the, where you've got Tumwater, Lacey, et cetera. I think it's important that we compare what other places are paying. I do understand what Frank's saying, but we should be consistent. If this is what we presented last time, that we did it on a monthly one, we probably just should keep it, because I don't want people to, I'm fine going either way, but I think it is important just to realize of what ours is, especially to Aberdeen and Hoquiam. I mean, that we're not out of line, which is part of the reason why our rates are so low. Is I'm thinking Hoquiam probably has a CPI attached to it, just because obviously they've kept ahead of whatever.
I think if you put Aberdeen and Hoquiam in there and put the rest of them away, that'd be better. That's what people, that's our region. That's our area.
Frank, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we should have a comparison, and I think what Bob's saying is probably good enough. Aberdeen, Oakland should be good enough. I guess keep it monthly, because that's what we started off with, and people probably would freak out. They wouldn't read it. They'd just see the number and panic. But I always like to, tell them, hey, this is what's going to be on your bill,
Right.
Yeah.
What you got there, Angie?
I was just gonna ask the group what they think of the 0.04 versus 0.09. I know in the budget amendment, I put in the 0.09, leaving the position, the mechanical harvesting in, and that gets us to our fund balance target as well. So do you think it just gets too confusing if there's options in there, or do you want to leave that in to show? The 0.9 matches the budget amendment, the 0.4 does not. I will say that.
I would say leave 0.9, 0.09. That gets us where we want to be, where we need to be.
Yeah, Nick did have a good point though, showing that an additional, I guess in this case, it's like 46 cents now, gets us a bunch more stuff. So do you think that's helpful?
Yeah, I do.
What you
Because
think,
that's going to
John?
satisfy the fresh waterways people a little bit more.
Well, I don't know if we need to have another sheet, but I just recall a conversation in the last one that would be helpful is how much money do we, with our current rate, how much reserve do we actually have? Because we had the conversation that we didn't have enough actual reserve. We had reserve, but not enough, that there should be a higher percentage. And I think Nick spoke to a certain percentage that we should have. And so our current rate doesn't get us there. And does the new rate get us to where we need to do, and plus pay for everything else?
Yeah. So in the exhibit A for the, how I made the little notes last.
Okay.
So for this budget update that I'm bringing on the 22nd, I made similar notes.
Mhm.
And the one for the storm drain, it will say, and I got to change my number because the math was not right. It'll say the storm drain ending fund balance is positive and in compliance with the city council's financial policy, which is at least 10% of budgeted expenditures. Budgeted revenues include the recommended storm drain rate increase of 96 cents per month per standard lot. The environmental specialist position and mechanical weed harvesting were not removed from the budgeted expenditures. So it's basically saying we're getting everything that was asked for. We're at the fund balance target, but it does include that rate increase of the 96 cents.
But doesn't our current, so what is our reserve right now for stormwater?
If
Minus,
yeah, minus 194,000.
Oh my God.
But that's what the current rate, I mean, the current rate we have, so we
Yeah.
haven't closed.
If you take out with the current rate, if you take out the position and take out the mechanical weed harvesting, it gets us to like 6,000. And we
Okay.
need to be at about 250,000 to be meeting the financial policy.
Right. So I think it's important that you put that in there, because 9,000 in a fund that generates as much money as it does makes no sense, because 9,000 is not going to cover anything. So I think, because on the last council meeting, we had the discussion of, oh, well, if we just cut those two things out, we would be okay with the rate, which we actually wouldn't, in my mind, we wouldn't be okay.
Mm-mm. We
So
would do this again next year.
yeah, so I'm thinking if you could have either highlighted on that the second table, so it has it, so exactly, even if we took those out, where we're at with it. And then the other thing that I would like to see, if whatever, and again, I'm not, yeah, so if you present it, I would encourage you to add CPI to it.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll be just doing this again.
Yeah, and that's not I don't think we need to dive into the numbers of CPI. It would be more just something added to the ordinance.
Right, similar to water.
Yeah. And were you thinking caps like we did for water? It's at
Mhm.
least nothing less than 0, but nothing more than 3.
Right. Mm-hmm.
and
I would ask that if we do that, because our water CPI is tied to the June CPI, but our CBAs are tied to August. So for example, water this year was different than our CPIs for our raises. So I would just suggest that if we add that, we use the August CPI going forward, so it matches the collective bargaining agreements.
So if you add CPI to this, that stops us from having conversations like this in the future, or the need for it, unless we drop real low, right?
Or unless we really want to create something, a bigger fresh waterways department. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if we have a long-term plan, then we would have to revisit that, but.
Okay, all right. But this will keep it going.
it's
And get
a
us- get
much
us-
longer term Band-Aid.
Yeah, okay.
Frank, what do you think?
I think CPI is a good idea on that. I'm fine with bumping it more than what Nick's asking, if we can put some people to work. I mean, that's beating a dead horse here, obviously, but
Right.
you know, we're hiring a management guy with nobody to manage. That's how I see it.
Right. And Nick, we had an offline conversation about, is there a way that we can move forward and just make that as a placeholder, instead of actually defining what the job is until we actually meet with the fresh waterways and hammer that out? I mean, is it required that we actually define, I mean, what the position is actually going to be?
So let me address two things. So to address that, I want to address that, and then I also want to address what Frank just said. So let's do these in sequential order. So as it relates to putting people to work, our stormwater team is currently as part of the field operations team. And so we have roughly, 2.5 to 3 FTEs funded. And so if the intent was to put more people so that we have available teams to respond, what I would do is I would add them to that team. And that would actually probably be the best way to facilitate this. The toughest part, though, is that they're kind of peanut buttered across a variety of different funds. And so, we'd have to, probably, I wouldn't say it would break the payroll forecast, but it would create a pretty substantial impact. But I'm completely okay with, providing the funding for 2 additional people so that John has, team members that are capable of providing support on a much more frequent basis. I'm on board there. The secondary piece, as it relates to defining the position, I don't believe that the position needs to be ironed out. I think, my idea is that I do want some feedback from the fresh waterways. But again, my opinion is that the advisory group is going to provide some sort of framework, but they're focused on one thing, and that's the waterways. And one of the things that I think needs to be focused on is the other elements associated with the stormwater system. And so that's construction stormwater monitoring, all of the development activities, who is monitoring the construction stormwater permits, and compliance there with that. And that's every single land disturbing activity. That's somebody building a foundation. That's every clearing permit. And so while I will appreciate the guidance from the fresh waterways, their focus is, they've got blinders on because they're only looking at that one piece. Whereas this position, I think, is going to be more holistic to the utility. And so their focus on, the bigger projects, that the stormwater master plan, the IAVMP, deeper water quality studies, those sorts of things, I think are going to be a little bit more appropriate. And again, not to kind of beat the dead horse, but I think that type of scientific person is not well suited to supervising field employees. And that's why I think it's probably better if we talk about field employees, they're better to go on to John's team, for utilization in that arena, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. This is the first I've heard is that is the option.
I just came up with it.
Okay.
Now that's good. Good thinking.
So, and so giving additional support, just like what we just talked to, is that possible with what we're currently doing with the budget?
No. Sarah, if you could go up one page, please. So one of those team members, a maintenance 2 is traditionally going to be, somewhere from a burdened rate standpoint. Angie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to say probably somewhere between the $100,000 and $120,000 range. And so, is that right?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. So if we're going to add 2 of those, that's, roughly $250,000. And so that on top of the 500 that is the target to accomplish those other goals, we would be adding another 250,000 on top of that. And so what that would look like, I'd have to kind of expand that spreadsheet out a little bit. The funny thing is that, again, when we hear these big numbers, that the monthly rate impact doesn't translate to a significant impact there. So yeah, I'm very, very comfortable in saying, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down a little bit to the latter half of the page. Yeah, if we were to increase that 0.09 and kick that up probably another 0.07 or so, realistically, you're probably talking another 50 cents on top of that. So instead of it being, $5.06 for a 9,000 square foot lot, you're probably talking $5.60 per square foot lot. Again, like I said, I don't think that the monthly rate impact is obscenely significant. It's just when it comes to adding personnel, there's a big cost there. So do you guys think that should be a third option that's put on the table? I mean, I'm not a big fan of adding more options, because that just further complicates the discussion.
Well, it satisfies leadership position plus some people that actually carry things out. And it's only, and I don't want to say only in the sense that, diminishing it, but it only, it's about $1, isn't it, per month?
$1.50 a month.
$1.50 a month. And we have a crisis of sorts with our fresh waterways, and we're not even really going to know how bad it is until we get into it. So we've got to have people that can actually do the work. And it shouldn't be a situation that it comes up where we're rushing to resolve the problem in the middle of a budget or something. We should be doing it ahead of time, like right now.
Angie, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yes. Oh, yeah, please. So I thought the understanding was that we would, if we hire a person, we would get a study done next year and then come up with some kind of plan to move forward. I just have a feeling if we ended up adding like 2 or 3 people, we wouldn't know what to do with them. And these positions, some of them are going to be union, which we can't go backwards on. So I just feel like adding all these new people at once would be kind of disastrous, because we don't even know what we're going to be doing. And I thought the intent of getting the new person in would be to figure out what that plan is, and then have them kind of talk to council about what needs to be done and what funding needs to be.
Well, don't do it at once.
Well, and that also, that makes it a much simpler process, because if we do it that way, then we just use the $5.06 rate. It's less than $1 per month. And that's the new rate we'll be looking at. And that will allow us to move forward through 2022, and looking at it into 2023, then we could make a decision on how, if we want to expand the department or not.
Right.
What you got there, Mr. Elder?
And people are crying for the weeds to get cleaned up in the waterway. But I think there's work that they can do fairly soon. But I understand you want to get the manager guys feet up. But bump it with the, promise that we're going to put some people to work on cleaning up the water. It might sell, and that way you don't have to deal with it in a year to bump up the price again. You've already got the money in there to put you guys to work. I'm not saying hire 3 guys on the same day.
No,
I'm not saying that, but I think there's a lot of people that want the waterways cleaned up. I don't think it's going to be an unpopular option to throw out there.
I don't know about everybody else. I did have, a little bit of a hard time understanding, a good chunk of that. It sounded like the key component there was that you didn't think that people would be opposed, for the most part, because the waterways need to be cleaned up, and that, obviously we're not going to hire them all at once.
Right.
The toughest part is that, again, it kind of goes back to that, what are the expectations? If the expectation is that, the city has a boat and people out in the waterways, well, we don't have the boat. But part of what we can do is, coordinate more opportunities with the Fresh Waterways Corporation, who does have a boat. They do volunteer, and I'm sure they would be happy to volunteer certain times of the year for us to participate, in, some remediation But again, as it relates to removing danger trees, cutting stuff up, in many cases we contract that work out too. So again, it's six one way, half dozen the other. That what I can tell you though is that John's team needs help anyways. We do need FTEs on that team, and if there's a way for us to kind of translate to the best of both worlds, if you will, and commit to some support out in the waterways, we're happy to do that as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I like all that. The only thing I didn't like was about the volunteers. I mean, these guys are old enough to be my dad.
Wait a
They're
minute.
out there, okay?
Be nice.
So, I mean, we gotta be looking at a different alternative here. The two people that have come, that I've seen on the waterways things, a lot of them shouldn't be out there probably trying to fish a log that's half into the water and half out, So I just think if it's not this time, we need to come up with a plan so that we got, a different alternative so we can get the work done. It's hugely popular with the public,
Yeah, I don't disagree. One thing I do think would be valuable though is having a couple new fresh individuals that are out there working with those we'll call them experienced individuals, because I'm sure there's a lot of wisdom that new fresh hands can pull from those experienced individuals. What you got there, Angie?
Oh, I was just gonna say too, from just a standpoint of what transpired at the last council meeting is, I guess at this point, I would be uncomfortable going in there recommending more because we didn't talk about it last time and that wasn't the direction from council. So, I mean, we can take the direction from council, take in this rate that we're proposing. And if council wants to say we want more, by all means. But just from the staff perspective, I'm not comfortable going in, and we went in front of the citizens at our last meeting and never talked about adding more than the dollar. So I just don't think that would be a really good thing to do at this point. But council can bring it up as a proposal. That would be fine.
Yes, sir.
So Angie, just to follow through the process. Okay, so you bring back the original proposal that we had that we've already talked about, and say 6 months into next year that the funds flowing, we've got the money that we think it can. Is there an option for us to look at adding a position? Or are we locked in if we don't do anything?
Nope. If the money's there, continuous money, not a one-time thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can amend the budget during one of our quarterly budget amendments and do it that way. That wouldn't be a problem.
Because I do agree with what Frank is saying on having some people that can pull logs. I mean, I think that's important, but I also totally agree with your position is that we've not talked about it at the council meeting. And if we're trying to pass the budget, then people are going, hey, that's not right. We need to have a discussion, and we haven't heard from Fresh Waterways. But if we do the rate increase, the money will be there, and it's like anything, like in general fund. Oh, well, we can fund it because it's a general fund. So I would be fine presenting as is, but having your back pocket of, if say someone goes, well, I want to add two, because until this meeting, Nick, we haven't had the conversation where that we've been talking just pulling logs. So that's just my thought.
I have a question too, and this is just are we getting a study done next year? I know didn't add money into the budget to get a Fresh Waterways study done.
Well, there's two pieces. So one, we have our vegetation management plan, and then the second is the stormwater master plan. And so the stormwater master plan, theoretically, and I haven't put a scope of work and expected, deliverable together, but I think that there's a reasonable thought process to say, hey, as it relates to maintaining the system, here's what our maintenance efforts need to be. Here's what our capital efforts need to be, just like the water system plan. And then we can take that and turn it into a rate model.
Perfect. And at that point, if it's decided in that plan that we need 2 or 3 more people, that would be incorporated in that rate model, correct?
Yes.
Kind of like how we do the EMS one.
Mhm.
Yeah. See, I think that makes, I mean, in my opinion, that makes the most sense is let's start, get someone in and then get a plan with some numbers and then go from there.
So I guess I did have a quick question. Angie, do you think that there's a chance that the budget will pass before December 11th? Or is December 11th the last meeting?
Per the budget calendar, we're supposed to be passing this on the 22nd, but it might go into December if we can't decide on the storm rates, because they kind of go hand in hand.
Well, let me throw a crazy thought out there. If council, for whatever reason, decides to pass the budget as it's currently, prepared, which shows the 0.09 effective billing unit increase. If council does that, then I mean that effectively says, hey, here's our we're expecting that that rate model is going to be the minimum that we are going to adopt. And because we haven't presented an ordinance, we're going to go through 2 different readings. And so December 13th is when, the secondary ordinance for the rate modification is going to be presented. If for whatever reason, council says, hey, we'd like that number to actually be higher. We'd like it, billing unit increase of, instead of it being 0.09, we want it to be 0.13. And we think there's value in adding a couple of people, to John's team so that they can provide additional support. That can be adjusted via, the revenue and expenditures in the first budget adjustment in 22, right?
Correct.
So it sounds like it can be done both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The tough part is that there's going to need to be a decision at some point in the very near future that, what is the minimum rate that we are going to adopt? And that's the key piece.
Yeah, and the timing too, because like we've talked about, these bills go out in January. So it's not like something we can just put down the road.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
I guess we go with the 0.09 with the knowledge that we're going to need to amend the budget to give this guy some help to do his work. His findings. And we can do that in June or whatever next year.
Yeah.
All right.
It's reasonable.
Yeah,
But
because
I think-
hopefully we'll have some rates and plans to back up, the addition of new people. Yeah.
Well, we're kind of still two pieces, I guess, and that's fine. I don't think there's going to be much squabble about you coming to the council meeting, Nick, and saying, I want to put 2 guys out there to clean up the waterways.
Right.
I don't see a lot of resistance to that.
Okay, so Angie, it looks like you got a kind of a thumbs up.
Thank you. I'm glad I came to the meeting.
Yeah.
Very
Good
helpful.
deal.
You're the catalyst for change.
Yeah, right.
Well, the last item or the last 2 items on the agenda, I believe, was, anything else, for kind of the greater good. And if not, then, I think the next meeting would then be scheduled for December 8th, which is, well, let me rephrase that. December 8th is the second Wednesday of the month, but it's not the Wednesday after the first council meeting. So do you guys have a preference on the 8th or the 15th? What you got there, Scott?
No, Mike was just saying goodbye to me.
Oh,
Okay. Nick, there's been and I agree that, is there a way that on our next meeting, we could meet in person?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the public workshop.
That'd be good.
I think we
So
can space out.
I am fine as long as it is in the afternoon, because I've got my staff meeting usually on Wednesdays. So but those are in the morning, and so about this time I would be fine.
December 8th, you talking about?
Yeah, well, that's actually probably more appropriate because it would be right before the last meeting of the year.
Yeah.
That way we can kind of get anything else out there, and council members can report kind of the summary of what we discussed.
So 8th at 3 p.m.
I have to record this, remember,
What?
so I'll have to come to the public works yard or whatever. Nick,
Yeah.
Let's have that as a separate conversation and see what our options are on that. Because I do think that it would be more effective. I mean, just to get some hammer stuff out, because I'm sure that I'm hoping that our budget's done and we could kind of look to see what future projects are. And I think it'd be good for us to sit down. So videotaping or whatever, let's just figure what that process would be.
I may have a solution for you, Sarah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Sarah, would you make sure, would you send me a copy of the agenda up from today?
yeah, I'll do it when I send it to the rest of council with the video and everything, like I
Because
do
I want to
finance and this one.
make sure we have the notes. I want to, put the notes in there.
Mr. Eldon.
Sarah, what if we have the meeting at the library, is that easier to set up and record?
I can set it up anywhere. I was just letting Nick know I'd have to be at the public works yard too.
Yeah, what we'll have to do is figure out how we're going to be able to move that forward. We should be getting our AV equipment hopefully set up here in the next couple of days. It's supposed to be, our TV is supposed to be delivered on Monday or tomorrow, and we already have a computer there, so we might actually be able to just hook a camera in and have us sitting around the table, with the camera set up there. So Sarah, let's touch base next week and figure out, which direction we're going to go. And then hopefully if we let you guys know a couple of days in advance, it should be pretty straightforward of, we're at the library or the public works yard, and shouldn't be that big of an impact to you guys, right? Cool. Sounds like a plan. Appreciate the time, guys.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you much. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. And good night.
Take care.